Evangelism, isn't it? Evangelism is not just the big Billy Graham meetings, etc. It is this also, of sharing what he's done for us. But there's still a place for the big meetings. On the 17th, time goes by, a fortnight ago, Sheila and I were down in Devon. The Rings Ash circuit. Don't look for Rings Ash in the map, there's no such place. I never quite know how it came around. But the Rings Ash circuit, where we were stationed from 86 to 91, and I owe a good tremendous amount to the church down there. Country circuit, just west of Crediton, country circuit. But the two main churches and some of the others as well, there was such a sense of God's presence in them. And he'd been there. Our previous minister before me was great. I came in with his inheritance and we were built up. And it's still going the same. I thank God for that circuit, because our two youngsters, they were at the stage of last years in school and leaving school and going out into the world at that stage. And it gave them a foundation amongst the young people, which is still there as they worship today as in Marks of Haydock. And the glory of it was that last Sunday, one of their friends, who they used to go out with, I don't mean go out in that sense, but used to go together, was the preacher. And we met the person who invited us down, the circuit steward. The reason for being there was that the Rings Ash circuit won't exist anymore after the 1st of September. It's been split in two. One half's going to Exeter, another half's going to South Moulton. And they're a little bit, Exeter circuit, very different approach to theirs. But the circuit steward who invited us down, and whom we shared on the Sunday with, I'd forgotten this, but that couple, I had a note from the Live Link. I'd been involved in the Live Link, Billy Graham Live Link, if some of you heard of this. It was in Exeter, the shoulder film in the cinema, and I had a note referring me to these two people. And, wanting us to make contact with them. They belonged to the parish church in the village. She was on the PCC, and I've got nothing against the parish church. But I spoke with them and I said, go and tell your vicar, what has happened. They were so excited, having gone out. They went to tell the vicar, and he said, you shouldn't forget about that nonsense. Typical of many, I'm afraid. But in the end, they came to us. And they're still there. He's a circuit steward. They're still there. And it was wonderful to meet them. It was also rather nice to meet, and this has nothing to do with anything else, it was lovely also to meet those three girls. The youngest of whom, all three married now, the youngest of whom I did a baptism service for in the weeks before I left. 20 years ago now, of course. But it was there we saw just one example of the power of evangelism, the way in which it touched this couple and changed them from being churchgoers into burning with the faith in the gospel. So thank God for evangelism, but it's not just the Billy Graham, we all have a part to play. And that chorus reminds us of that. One of the things that came over, step up here because otherwise you can't sing at the back, can you? And one of the things that came over, sadly, in the events in Norway, was that the person who did this, one of his claims was that, what claims about him was that he was a fundamental Christian fundamentalist. And in a sense, the implication was what he was doing was partly in the name of Christ. And that's been used so often down through the centuries, hasn't it? In the church from the very beginning, many things were done which I cannot believe were in the will of God, were done in the name of God. I revealed something to congregation in the service earlier on. And when I say this, I don't want you to forget it. Because some of you, if you looked at the minutes of conference and so on, the proper note, my name is O. Patrick Button. Not Patrick O'Button, that's the Irish spelling, Patrick O'Button. But O. Patrick Button, you might have thought, what's the O stand for? Some of you may know. Say this, I want the rest of you to forget it, because I don't like it. And that is Oliver. Now, that may be all right, but growing up in Ireland, Oliver was not a name you'd like to have. At school, I was either Oliver Twist, that wasn't so bad. Ollie Hardy, Oliver Hardy, Lorna Hardy, not too bad. Or Oliver Cromwell. Oh, blasphemy to the Irish. But yet, look what he did. And he did it in the name of God. And how often there's been like that. Sheila, when we did a visit in about 97, I think it was, the first real tour of Ireland. The children had grown up, you know. The first real tour of Ireland. She was amazed that so many of these places had been destroyed, these monasteries and so on, by Cromwell and these forces. Ireland suffered a great deal out of that sort of thing. Protestant against Catholic. And of course, it's been the other way around as well. Mary and others, Catholic against Protestant. And both of them working for God, in the name of God. We go back further, and we've got the Crusades, which are still, and I don't mean Billy Graham, we've got the Crusades, which are still remembered in the Islamic world. And many Christians are hated today because of the Crusades. All in the name of God. But it goes further back than that. Let me go back to the Gospels. And let me take John chapter 16. No, it's actually Luke 9 and 51 to 6. Luke 9, 51 to 6. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And he sent messengers on ahead, who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready to welcome him, ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him, because he was heading for Jerusalem. The Samaritans, as you know, had no love for Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them?" But Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they went to another village. This village dared to not welcome Christ, and therefore they should be destroyed. The apostles, that was their view. Let me go to another example. Mark chapter 9, verses 38 to 40. "Teacher," said John, "we saw a man driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop, because he was not one of us." "Do not stop him," Jesus said. "No one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me. For whoever is not against us is for us. We saw a man driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop, because he was not one of us." Oh, they are not any good because they don't belong to us, you know. A little girl of about 5 that I saw when I went to visit somebody in Larne in Northern Ireland. And as I went up the path, there was this little girl, she was playing in the front garden, and I said, you know, "Hello, what's your name?" You know, the usual thing. And there was another little girl playing next door. And I said to this little girl in this garden, daughter of a Salvation Army couple, and I said, do you play with the little girl next door? For less than 5, she was preschool. I don't play with her, she's a papist. You know? And it's not extreme. And you know, sometimes we've been guilty of that. Oh, we're Methodists, we're the best church, you know. I grew up with the idea of one church being the true church, you know. And all others, that means the Protestants, were wrong. But at least, in my day, we didn't kill them. Although I was a bit worried when I first visited Ireland in 1997 and went back to visit cousins I hadn't seen for 40-odd years. How they might feel. Dundalk, just south of the border, you know. A place where in those days there'd been a lot of trouble. And I thought, dare I tell them that I'm a turncoat? They were all right. They were good Christians. Catholics, but good Christians. But you know, this is still, it's often been the situation, isn't it? A group of, one or the other group of Christians have felt they've got God's ear, and others haven't. And sadly, even the Pope reflects this a little bit, doesn't he? At the very least, we're the separated brethren. At the very least. For years, whenever I went to a fellowship of fraternal ministers in areas, I would meet the Catholic one and he said, oh, well, one day maybe you'll see the light and come back to us. You know, there's always been something of this. It's ceased more recently. I'm seeing it as a hopeless case. But, you know, it's been that, isn't it? And yet, you know, it shouldn't be. And it grieves the heart of God that it is so. And it leads us to all sorts of extremes, all sorts of things. For we may see it and just, you know, it's just one of these things, but others latch on to that and they think it's their right to dominate in the name of God those who don't see things quite as they do. It leads to things like what has happened. Christianity wasn't the main reason for it, but it does prepare the ground for things like what happened in Oslo. And yet, it shouldn't be like that, should it?